Here's something interesting. Last week, I told you about Republican governor from Ohio, Mike DeWine, who essentially abandoned Donald Trump when it comes to dealing with coronavirus. Mike DeWine took coronavirus seriously from quite early on, one of the earlier governors to really take action. And he has seen his approval skyrocket thanks to not following the Trump doctrine and following the sort of sensible governor doctrine on coronavirus. We've now learned that Republican Congressman Peter King from New York, who I am no big fan of, is going to be ignoring the Republican Party and voting for a Democratic coronavirus relief package that's expected to be voted on later today. If it may already have been voted on by the time you listen to today's show. Now, I have mixed feelings about this in the sense that it is once again, it's a Republican who's personally affected by something and now is behaving rationally and doing the right empathetic thing. I wish it didn't take that to get them to behave appropriately. And what I mean by that is Peter King is a New York congressman. He represents one of the hardest hit areas by the virus. It's New York's second congressional district. This is the South Shore of Long Island. So it's not the absolute epicenter of New York City's 5 boroughs, but it's as close as you can be. It's just, the New York City metro area without actually being there. And that's why he's going to vote in favor of this package. Republicans have been talking more and more about what if we maybe limit relief to blue states. They've been hesitant to do more relief and a second stimulus. But Peter King can't get away with that. His district has been absolutely crushed. So there are some who are framing this as hero Peter King abandons his party and does the right thing. Well, it's more like Peter King abandons his party on this one bill because it would be political suicide for him personally not to, since he represents one of the hardest hit congressional districts in the country. If it were the Boston area or Seattle that needed this particular type of bill and not his district, my guess is he would not be voting for it. He would simply stick it out with Republicans. Peter King is normally no friend of the left or of the Democratic Party. And this is one, it's a horrible realization that we have to have. What it takes for some of these people to do something, to do the right thing, is to be personally affected. He needs to be reelected in November, so that's why he has to do this. Now, as far as the bill goes, there are actually some really interesting things in it. This is called the HEROES Act, $3 trillion in total. It stands for the Health and Economic Recovery Omnibus Emergency Solutions Act, HEROES Act. It would pay a company's payroll costs up to $100,000 per employee who has been laid off or furloughed if the business can demonstrate that their revenue has dropped at least 20%. It would add $850 billion in assistance to state and local governments, $200 billion in hazard pay for frontline healthcare workers and other non-essential workers. It would do another round of $1,200 checks to most Americans. It would raise the payment per child from $500 also to $1,200, but it would be capped total at $6,000 per family. It would extend the supplemental, or I guess they're calling it enhanced unemployment from the federal government through January 31st of next year. And one of the most interesting components that's buried in there, which I don't actually think will pass if the bill does pass, is that it will eliminate the $10,000 cap on what's called SALT, state and local taxes, for 2020 and 2021. This is super interesting because one of the ways that the Trump Republican tax reform of 2017 hurt those in states like mostly blue states with higher state income taxes is they limited the state and local tax deduction to $10,000. So if you live in a very high tax state or just a blue state with a reasonable amount of tax, you are limited in what amount of tax you can write off on your federal return to $10,000 total. This goes directly at blue states, and it tends to have no effect in some of these red states that have no state income tax. So it would repeal that for 2020 and 2021, which is very, very interesting, although analysts agree it is very unlikely that that suspension of the $10,000 SALT cap would actually make it into a final bill that passes Senate and House conference. But in the meantime, we will see how the House votes. Peter King apparently will be voting with Democrats, and we will follow it.